There is an element of prophecy on my part in this writing, so take it from that standpoint. But it is important for those who live through 2050, my estimate for when the Nefelim next return, to understand where they are coming from and how their sentiment and attitude will affect their approach towards humanity on Earth. There are several source points to consider in gauging their assessment of us, and consequently how they will regain control of the area where Atlantis was in the Red Sea. They seek access to their pre-built habitat. Considerations around uplift ultimately drive all actions. Humanity already exists elsewhere in the galaxy. Using humans as co-Atlanteans was an experiment that failed. Earth humanity is still subject to emotion harvesting. Unless otherwise known, harvesting human emotion is still a go. To a degree, the Nefelim see humanity as slightly intelligent range animals, hardly on par with them. They are more technologically advanced, we are not so. They have space travel, we don't. They were in existence much longer than us. From some perspectives they made us as their uplift. We are less than, prone to being dangerous and uncontrollable, once and still useful for a specific purpose, and likely being seen as cause for their own annihilation by those who uplifted them. There is a scene, The Question, in the first Matrix film at about time offset 1 hour 37 minutes and 44 seconds where Agent Smith is interrogating a bound Morpheus and he says that he has a revelation during his time here. Agent Smith tried to classify the human species as something other than mammal, claiming that humans are a virus that must spread to survive. There is a segment of the Nefelim that carry the same attitude towards humans. Imagine, if you will, a bit of analogy or parallel between the use of humanity in Atlantis and the development over time of explosives. There was a time when gunpowder was the initial explosive of choice, useful for firing small projectiles but not strong enough for serious excavation work. Then came nitroglycerin, having greater explosive force but prone to early detonation. Repackaging nitro in wood pulp or cellulose helped with stabilizing the explosive, but in modern-day mining operations advancements like ammonia nitrate fuel oil, ANFO, and its water-based derivatives offer better safety, convenience, and range of use situations. Humans on this scale of gunpowder, liquid nitro, TNT, cordite, or Tavax is somewhere between liquid nitro and TNT, still very useful, prone to blowing up, and dangerous in use without proper handling. Uplift drives nearly everything. The Nefelim are not the only aliens in the galaxy. They are indeed uplift of the Pleiadians, seen that way by the Pleiadians and other alien races on par with the Pleiadians. One of the tenets of uplift, as a way of being and doing business, is that secondary level uplift, humans in this case, are bound by the same set of constraints and requirements as first level uplift, the Nefelim in this case. And deviation from the collective constraints and requirements can be considered as viable cause for removal, extermination, or annihilation. This viable cause consideration also works in reverse. The Pleiadians can also see their Nefelim, as uplift, as just as deviant, think broken or damaged, for having produced rebellious humans who do not adhere to the tenets of uplift. There is an element of seeing humanity, or ideas and thoughts that humans can hold, as infectious should they get out of control or their stance of rejecting uplift spread to other uplift creations elsewhere in the galaxy. There were times in human history when slavery was widespread and the slave owners and overseers considered slave revolt as a very dangerous and something to be suppressed as needed. My point here being, the Nefelim themselves have reason to fear being annihilated by the Pleiadians or other on-par alien species who see Earth humanity as being a potentially infectious disease capable of escaping confinement. The larger issues is not just about physical escape, but more importantly the idea of uplift rejection spreading outwards from Earth and then throughout the galaxy. I argue that Earth-based humanity is a bit different from other groups of humanity in the galaxy, as Earth humanity has been tweaked at the DNA level to assist in the emotion harvesting process, and that the leftover harvesting machines are still in operation, 8K years and counting, and leftover storage canisters are leaking chaos, and all that together is aggravating relations between groups of humans. This being an issue not present in other human groups elsewhere in the galaxy. Humanity considered as damaged goods. Consider a thought experiment. An alien investigation team comes to Earth to assess the situation and make a determination of whether humanity is worth saving. In somewhat more modern terms, consider the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where the two angels, unnamed as we understand the story, who come to assess the humans of Sodom and Gomorrah. What would the two aliens see when observing Earth? No common identity, a plethora of languages. Tendency towards violence and world domination. Observed instances of cannibalism. Unreality or fighting as essential to entertainment. No common identity or global language. Earth humanity has no common language, central government, or a central representative for outside aliens to negotiate with or arrive at common agreement. Earth history is full of failed attempts to form a central government or supreme leader. Any alien representative will see the futility in attempting to negotiate any kind of deal or arrangement. Now, admittedly, this is overly complicated by the past tweaking of humanity's DNA with support for inducing schism, and maybe if that change was reversed or undone, then humanity might be more cohesive and have a common identity. Yet, doubtful. Tendency towards violence and world domination. History is replete with warring factions seeking to conquer, dominate, or exterminate neighboring villages, towns, regions, and nations. Consider the empire-building efforts of Rome, the British, Spanish, French, Mongols, in colonial and landmass domination. China of modern day seems bent on world domination, initially through the Belt and Road Initiative and claims of ownership of islands in the South China Sea. China still believes it owns Taiwan. Observed instances of cannibalism. I will not expound too much in this paper on how the Nefelim view cannibalism in humanity, but it is a great concern on their part for seeing us as less than them. Unreality or fighting as essential to entertainment. Name for me a major motion picture of the last 50 years which did not rely on violence, even sanitized violence, as a central drawing force of the film, storyline, or franchise theme. In addition to this is the element of unreality, that is the reliance in the film or plot development of activities, actions, or focus on things not real in everyday life. Think escapism for this one. Try doing a Google search on identify for me major motion pictures which did not contain violence or animation. My latest try on this produces classic films, Singing in the Rain, Roman Holiday, 12 Angry Men, My Fair Lady, dramas, The King's Speech, Remains of the Day, Driving Miss Daisy, comedies, Ferris Bueller, Grand Budapest Hotel, Little Miss Sunshine, Prince's Bride, Others, Arrival, Truman Show, Lost in Translation, all nice films, but hardly on par with films like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Saving Private Ryan, John Wick, Apocalypse Now, Rambo, and No Country for Old Men. Now, admittedly, the attraction to violence can be attributed to the past human DNA tweaking in support of the harvesting of human emotions. There also is reason to expect that a second round of Ka-like creations can be geared towards resistance to the residual harvesting machines so that a Ka 2.0 are not subject to schism creation from the still active machines. But the attraction to violence, even boxing matches, and major sports activities seems to be more human-central than DNA tweaking for harvesting interests. Atlantis was an experiment that failed. The Nephilim choice of using humans to continue their habitat preparation work was a calculated bet or risk. Can something volatile and likely dangerous be successfully used, in the comparative short term, without constant monitoring? The bet was yes, but the outcome was no. The Ka experiment failed when Atlantis was destroyed, at the hands of humans, and in the process the alien transport system put in place as the primary migration tool was also destroyed. Had the revolt of the Khan not happened, then the Nefelim would have completed their population migration to Earth and the initial bet seen as a success. Absent from this consideration is the unknown of what does God or Source want in all of this. The Nefelim, having been burned once already, are not likely to make the same mistake again. They may make some more superhumans, but they will be kept under close observation. Humans exist elsewhere in the galaxy, have been observed for billions of years, so from the Nefelim perspective there is already a knowledge base of observations on how humanity tends to operate. There is a telling scene in the latest Planet of the Apes franchise film, Kingdom, where the talking apes come across a human, Freya Allen playing the part of May, also Ciri in The Witcher, where the non-violent apes discover that she is capable of almost indiscriminately killing another human. The Nefelim view this orientation as abhorrent, another reason for seeing humanity as being less than them. Earth humanity is still subject to emotion harvesting. The current Earth humanity is still set up, via DNA tweaking, for the harvesting of emotion for export and sale on the galactic market. Absent any change in directive from the Pleiadians regarding harvesting, the Nefelim are still oriented towards producing the product. So their orientation will be to regain access to their underground habitats, finish the population migration, and resume harvesting work. If they get too much in the way of resistance from, shall we say, the Egyptians, the Saudis, Arabs in general, or Islamists, then they might consider releasing a worldwide retrovirus that inhibits all future human conceptions. This was the central theme to the Dan Brown Inferno book and largely consistent film. In that context, they can just wait 80 to 100 years, hanging out at L1 or L4, and then restart the migration work when the world population has gradually died off. Then they could release a different retrovirus restoring human births, perhaps with some more tweaks that make humanity a bit more manageable. Harvesting human emotion is still a go, or not. There is reason to believe, or hope, that the Pleiadians themselves are undergoing a change of heart and their own spiritual development such that harvested human emotion is no longer on their priority list. This change in intent can be communicated telepathically or through an aspect of remote viewing, even all the way from the Pleiades. In this context, the Nefelim would be released from their past directives, and on their own they could release a different retrovirus that disables the schism-inducing aspect of the harvesting machines. This would do much to alleviate the warring nature of disparate nations and even create a context where humanity and aliens get along together.